Next up is the elements of story. First is the characters and its characterization. The first character is Alfredo Salazar. Alfredo Salazar is the son of Don Julian. He is a 30-year-old man and a bachelor. He is engaged with Esperanza but still has fleetings with Julia Salas. He believes in love and optimism to discover ecstasy. The next character is Esperanza. Esperanza is the wife of Alfredo Salazar. She is a homely woman, literal minded, and intensely acquisitive. She is one of those women who is fortunate to have this aptitude of uniformly beauty. The next character is Julia Salas. Julia Salas is the sister-in-law of Judge Del Valle. She is the second woman whom Alfredo falls in love with. She remains single for the rest of her life. Next is Don Julian. Don Julian is the father of Alfredo Salazar and Carmen. He is a wise man who warns Alfredo about the hazards of continuing a romance and an engagement without a good marriage. The next character is Carmen. Carmen is the daughter of Don Julian and the sister of Alfredo Salazar. The next one is Judge Del Valle. Judge Del Valle is the brother-in-law of Julia. Next is Donna Adelia. Donna Adelia is the sister of Julia. Donna Adelia is small and a plump, pretty woman who has a baby complexion. And the next one is Dionisio, which is the husband of Donna Adelia. And the next character is Calixta. Calixta is the note carrier of Esperanza and Alfredo. Next is Vicente. Vicente is the husband of Carmen, which is the sister of Alfredo. The last character is Brigada Samuy. Brigada Samuy is an elusive woman whom Alfredo is looking for to study about, which is part of his professional job. Next up is the setting. We may conclude that the timeline of this story was set around 1925 because it was the time that it was published. We can also say that this was set here in the Philippines. Aside from that, we can also say that the time of this story is Lenten season because they were celebrating the Holy Week, which was proven by the procession they made with the Our Lady of Sorrows. To mention some places in the short story, we have the house of Don Julian in Tanda, which is a house on the beach where they had a coconut plantation. We have also the house of Judge Del Valle where Julia Salas and Alfredo Salazar first met. And the third place mentioned in the story is the house of Don Julian where Alfredo lived and where the start of the story happened. And also the Calle Real and Calle Luz where Julia lived. So that is the setting of the short story.
So, another element of the story is, or the next element of the story is the plot. So, it composed of exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, and the denouement or the ending. So, in the exposition of the Dead Star, Alfredo was introduced as well as his romance with Esperanza. So, in the first half of the narrative, Carmen and Don Julian were discussing how Alfredo had not yet chosen whether or not to marry Esperanza, despite the fact that they had been engaged for several years. This also where Alfredo recalls how he met Julia Salas, like it was 6 weeks ago. So next is the rising action. So in here is the start where Julia Salas and Alfredo Salazar met. They start their interaction. So it was because when Don Julian and Alfredo gone next door or gone neighboring, and they went to Judge Del Valle's residence. So Alfredo and Julia start their interaction in there, and their friendship becomes more personal over time, and it has reached to the point where Alfredo prefers to spend time with Julia over Esperanza. So, in the climax, Alfredo met up with Julia after the parade of the Lady of Sorrows. This was after Julia found out about Alfredo's wedding, and because of this, she decided to congratulate him. After, so they talk about and talk, and he start when while talking, he actually Alfredo actually asked Julia if she ever have to choose between something you wanted to do or something you had to do. So Julia actually said that it's not her problem, so it's the man's problem. So she's not bothered with it. So this caused Alfredo conflicted with his emotion. So when they parted ways, he overheard Esperanza talking about their note-taker, Calixta, who was living with a man whom she's not married with. So she conveys or show her disapproval or dissatisfaction, which Alfred attempts to dispute. However, the conversation turned heated, and Esperanza confessed that she was aware of what was going on between Alfredo and Julia. She challenged Alfredo to leave her, and here Alfredo was forced to make a decision. So, for the following action, it was revealed in the story that after how many years? It was like 8 years. It was revealed that Alfredo married Esperanza. He married Esperanza because he was concerned about how society would perceive him and Esperanza. But their relationship was very far from ideal. It was actually a marriage it was actually a loveless marriage it was solely motivated by a sense of responsibility. So there's no love. Engaged in their marriage. So after this, Alfredo went to Julia's hometown because he's a lawyer, and he was finding a girl or a lady. It was Brigada Samoy, and then it was so he went actually to Julia's resident after that, and it was clear that he was still dreaming about a life with Julia, where he asked himself whether how would life seem now if he had married Julia, and had he meant anything to her. So something like that he's asking to himself. So in the denouement or the ending, he reached the Julia's residence. He discovered that he's still unmarried. So also when he went there, they actually talked, and when he looked to the moon or to the sky, he came to the realization that his love for Julia was non-existent, and that he was clinging to a dream that was now died or dead. With this, he realized that it was already done for both of them. So another element of the story is the conflict. So I found two conflicts in the Star of the Dead Star. So first is the man versus society. So in here, Alfredo is afraid what people might say because to him and Esperanza, because they are already engaged for 3 years, and it was not good that they will end it when their marriage is already around the corner or already near. So it was like next month they will going to marry each other. So second conflict is man versus himself. So in here, Alfredo seems like he doesn't want to continue the wedding with Esperanza because of his feelings towards Julia Salas. So he is confused between what he wanted to do and something he had to do. That so he wanted to spend his time or stay with Julia Salas, but he had to marry Esperanza. So something like that. So next conflict is the man versus fate. This is where Alfredo battles his fate as well as the challenges of life and love. So he battles between how his life was going to be if he marry Esperanza or he will stay with Julia. So it was the challenges or between challenges to his fate. But in the end, he chose. We can see that he chose Esperanza, but he is still dreaming about his life if whether he marry or whether he choose to spend Julia Salas. So in here, he must actually confront difficulties or problems in making critical decision in his life. So that's the conflict in the stories. So the next element in the story is the point of view. So the author, Marquez Benitez, uses third-person point of view, and in the story of the Dead Star, it seems like he is narrating or showing to or telling to us the life of Alfredo Salazar about his love and his affair with Julia Salas and how he chooses Esperanza in the end. So next is the theme. So the theme in the story of Dead Star is forbidden love. So forbidden love was actually shown in the story as it was actually visible and it bothers the person till he recognizes his mistakes. So in here, we can see that forbidden love is actually between Alfredo and Julia. So that Alfredo is having an affair with Julia even though he is already engaged with Esperanza. So yes. So next is the regret. Alfredo regret not telling or informing Julia about his engagement before she discovered it on her own. So he actually even regret not being truthful or honest with Esperanza about his feelings for Julia. So next is the tone. So the tone in the story Dead Star is first there is a tone of serious. So in the beginning of the story, we can see that it is where Don, Julian, and Carmen are talking about the marriage of Alfredo and Esperanza. So actually Carmen asked his father when will the long table will be set. So actually the long table means marriage. So it is, and why Alfredo is not very specific on when their wedding is going to happen and why he is still a bachelor even though he's already over 30. So another tone we can see in the story is sad. So actually it seems like half of the story is sad because we can see that Alfredo is battling with himself because he is engaged with Esperanza, but when he met Julia Salas, he suddenly grew feelings for her. So another thing that we can see the tone sad is the part of the story or the last part of the story where Alfredo realizes that his love for Julia is already dead. It's somewhat saddening because of so-called love for Julia that he threw his other relationships, his relationship to Esperanza, only to realize that being with Julia is already a long lost dream. So it. So another tone is in love. We can see the tone in love whenever Alfredo and Julia Salas talk or spend time to each other. They seem in love, but they just didn't confess to each other and their feelings. So also it seems like Alfredo liked the presence of Julia Salas, and he always chooses her before his marriage to Esperanza. So last is the lesson. The lesson we can see in the story that start. For a relationship to grow, it actually must be founded or must be start with honesty and sincerity. Because in here, Alfredo actually realizes this at the end of the story. It is said that forbidden love is only visible, and it follows and curses him until he acknowledges his mistakes. So actually, the dead star also signify the unnoticed existence. So it talks about feelings and connection that exist but are not recognized, discussing them to lose their true meaning and importance. So relationship was so honesty and sincerity is very essential so that the relationship will grow.
Symbolism: empty box. It represents Alfredo's life and his hunger from the warmth that he has been longing to regain from what happened 8 years ago during his time alone with Julia. Serpent. It symbolizes lies, deception, and temptation that represents Alfredo Salazar's way on how he hid his engagement with Esperanza to Julia. When they talked sincerely and tried to deceive the young lady, he also lied to Esperanza several times in the short story. Charm. It represents Julia's appearance and the reason why Alfredo has suddenly felt this attraction towards her. Eyes. It represents the love in the eyes of Julia that already faded and vanished, that Alfredo realized when he looked at her in their reunion after so many years. Fire. It represents the warmth that Alfredo felt with his time with Julia before they parted ways and end what they had from 8 years ago. Dead stars. The story symbolizes a dead star, which means memories from the past. It is a part of our lives that which we look at, but then we realize it is already gone, already vanished. It is the scene where Alfredo realized that the dream that he clung, it is already gone. Social relevance. Specific age for wedding. During the 20th century, men and women that has already reached the age of 30 should be married. Just like in the story where Carmen mentioned why Alfredo is not in a hurry to be married even if he is already in his 30s and still a bachelor. Engagement. During the 20th century, engagement is sacred, just like marriage. It values the relationship between two people, but most of the engagements from back then were fixed due to their family's decision. Social status and connection. During the 20th century, the social status is determined if the person is worthy to be with. There are several scenarios from the 20th century where men will be accepted by the women's family if it is wealthy enough to feed their daughter.
Since Alfredo is having an affair with Julia while he is engaged with Esperanza, the implication is that the wedding was almost cancelled. Alfredo hurt Esperanza's feeling. She found out about the darkness secret of Alfredo and Julia. The possible effects of it to her might lead to depression or develop emotional problems. If Alfredo still insists choice and choose Julia over Esperanza, the implication might destroy their life, and it will end up damaging both Julia's family and his own. The other possible consequences of Alfredo's choice, first, they might have a conflict in their family. Second, it can cause trauma for Esperanza. And third, he will lose someone as big-hearted as she, the one who truly loves him. But in the end, Alfredo made a smart and right decision. He chose Esperanza over Julia since it was the safest decision. He committed and married Esperanza.
So next up is The Relationship of the Short Story Dead Stars by Paz Marquez Benitez. This short story has a truthful plot, a very strong plot that can really move your emotions, and we cannot deny the fact that this story happens in real life. So I have come up with multiple scenarios, multiple articles, and stories that I think are similar or synonymous to this short story. So the most comparable life story that I've got is the relationship of Jayza Manabat and Camille Trinidad. They're very well known as Jamil because they have a YouTube channel which have more than 1 million of subscribers. And recently they are on the commentary channel or news channel on YouTube, which is Rafi Tulfo in Action, because Jayzam was accused of having a relationship with another girl. So it is just the same as the short story Dead Stars, where Alfredo is already engaged with Esperanza, and then he had an affair with Julia, and just like Jayzam, he has a very pleasant relationship with Camille, as what we see online, and then there's an issue that he had an affair with another girl. So that is already one similarity between the two. And another similarity is that in the short story, although Esperanza already knew that Alfredo was cheating or had an affair with Julia, she did not leave him because she has this principle, she has these beliefs in marriage, she believed in loyalty. That's why she stayed with Alfredo. Same goes with what Camille did. Although their relationship was almost in the edge, they managed to fix their relationship. Um, Dambi, the one that had an affair with Jayzam, also had similarities with Julia. Because in the short story, Julia distant herself once she knew that Alfredo already was engaged with Esperanza. Just like what Dambi did, she did not want to do anything with Jayzam anymore because on social media people are talking about them. Because if you are an influencer, you're a personality, you're gonna be talked about online. And because Dambi was included in that issue, her personal life was also talked about by people, so she does not want to do anything with Jayzam anymore. That's another similarity. And the most ironic similarity that I've noticed in this one is that in the Dead Stars, Alfredo and Esperanza was endgame, even though Alfredo had an affair with another girl, which is Julia. Same with the relationship of Jayzam and Camille. Although Jayzam had an affair with another girl, they were still the endgame. Jayzam and Camille saved their relationship, and what they did is they deleted their YouTube channel, and the reason for that is that they want to focus mainly on their relationship. But I believe they created a new channel again, and that is the similarity between the relationship of Jayzam and Camille to the short story Dead Stars. But aside from that, I have also come up with multiple sources multiple stories that I think are somewhat related to the short story Dead Stars. I have also gathered a short story, an episode in MMK, which is a story of Sarah. Sarah had caught her husband having an affair with another girl. Although it had a different ending compared to the short story Dead Stars, it is somewhat similar with each other. So, yeah, that is another episode. And another one, when I read the story, the movie that came into my mind is the movie The Notebook. Although the gender is reversed or different, because the one that had a different relationship was Ali, which is the girl. He had another guy in the picture. The reason for that is not an affair, but family matters, because the family of Ali does not support her having a relationship with Noah, because Noah on that movie was not rich. So Ali was engaged with this new guy. They almost got married, but Ali saw Noah in a newspaper where Noah bought the house that he had promised Ali. So Ali went back to Noah. They met again with each other, and Ali talked with her fiance about that, and she came back to Noah, and they were endgame on that. Another one is the movie of Safe Haven. Although it does not include affairs, it is somewhat similar to Dead Stars, because the guy had a relationship with this girl, and that girl died, and it symbolizes the Dead Stars, because even though they are not physically interacting with each other, their relationship is still written out there. It is still written in the universe, and it is considered as a Dead Star. So there you have it. Those are the stories that I've gathered that I think that are similar to the short story Dead Stars.